In many areas of science, the relationship between mother and child is mentioned as a kind of spiritual connection between them. Some call this a spiritual umbilical phenomenon. In biology, observing the changes taking place in the mother, we noticed that the emotional conflicts that caused them affect the child. This effect is most intense in the fetal period, because the baby is then transferred to the emotional vibration of the mother. What causes him still inside the womb the same changes that occur in the mother. Let's say that during pregnancy the mother feels a serious decline in her own worth. The baby changes in the tissues such as bone atrophy. Consequently, they will cause their underdevelopment. After childbirth, when the child is in some way separated from the mother, and the decline in self-esteem at the mother after the birth, or its effect, will pass, then a newborn may be diagnosed with leukemia. So the newborn cannot feel self-esteem, because neither the fetus nor the newborn is sufficiently developed to be able to pass this state. Having found yourself in a completely new environment without reference, cannot fall into a conflict of self-esteem. However, feeling the emotions of the mother, she is already able to do it with her share. In this way it is possible to appear in the newborn or in a baby shortly after birth leukemia. This of course points to the emotional conflicts of the mother. This is a very interesting area for research for new medicine and even for all physiology. How are these changes taking place? Why is the emotional and spiritual state of the mother so influential on the child? And these are facts, things that can be proved. As for example, when in the fetal period, when a child is in the womb, it will be hurt in some way. 30. This conflict also affects the child. So are the signs. I have a friend who was 2 months pregnant when his mother was with him in the 2nd month of pregnancy. She applied for peeling corn. Working with her, young people started fooling around and throwing corn cobs at them. One of them almost hit the young mother in the stomach. She wrapped her arms so that the flask did not hit her stomach. What is surprising in the baby after birth in this place on the hand was a visible change in the shape of a corn cob, which until this autumn is darker and fades in the spring. This man is already over years old, but the same thing happens every year. The change darkens in the fall and the spring fades. So the signs, which in Hungarian we call maternal signs, there is evidence of maternal conflict over accidents during pregnancy. What the mother is experiencing as a potential harm to her will cause spots on the baby's skin, changes in pregnancy, most often for life. The marks do not disappear. For this reason it is very important that we have hope, as well as mothers with children under the age of, you can even say women with double responsiveness, that the emotional conflicts that go through, they can bump on the baby, causing him the same conflict. That is why I say that they can rebound, because after childbirth, your child may already be conflicting. So not only are the conflicts of the mother counted, but also the conflicts that the child is passing on. An example is the moment when the newborn and mother are shredded in the hospital, when the baby is dressed and placed in something like a cupboard, and is kept there until the feeding time. Optimal from the biology point of view, it would be to arrange a baby after giving birth to a mother's arm, and leave it there to preserve proximity and bondage. The voice and heart heartbeat of the mother, her breathing, and even the intestinal peristalsis is what she listened to during her pregnancy. After birth, these sounds affect not soothing. If we interfere with this condition by laying the baby's nappies on the shelf, it will cease to feel the mother and her proximity. Missing her mother will fall into a conflict of separation. This is the reason and explanation for neonatal skin changes, erythema or skin rash. These skin lesions are an indispensable proof that the newborn is also a sentient being, and according to its internal biological program, he feels the involuntary need to be close to his mother. Failure to meet them will cause biological conflicts in the child. Imperceptible, very delicate ulcer, after which during the time of leaving the disease appear all kinds of rashes, like erythema or urticaria, and in the wake of more intense conflicts even the formation of blisters. So not paying attention to the basic biological needs of newborns, we can cause them to develop lesions. Same as for any other creature. From birth to about years old, the child is very tuned to his mother, identifies with every emotional conflict that a mother passes through, thus being able to produce changes simultaneously with it. So it is possible that the child itself is going through conflict, but there is also evidence that the conflict that goes on in the mother is revealed to the child. That is why it is so important once again emphasize that until the child's birthday, in order for her mother to be particularly mindful of her emotions, for your emotional conflicts, because in this way, consciously or not, can cause changes in the child. Another case is about a mother who was very sensitive to blood. She was able to faint at the sight of blood. This blood-related conflict, the so-called blood conflict, so very stressed her year-old child. After all, she had no idea what was going on. She could only see that Mom was fainting at the sight of blood. Under his influence, a giant change in the spleen occurred in his spleen. From new medicine we know that to induce necrosis or spleen cysts, blood conflict, bleeding, conflict, blood pressure drop are essential. I cannot stand the sight of blood, I'm sick of her. By identifying with this conflict, the baby has developed a huge cyst on the spleen. This change was noted when the child was years old. He realized that Mum really exaggerated with repulsion to blood. That there is no blood or bleeding such as a cut in the hand, anything repulsive. Emotionally detached from the mother. And then she started to develop a cyst, as a symptom of getting out of the disease after the changes that have occurred in his spleen. That is why it is so important what emotions the mother shows through which conflicts pass. Because of this, it involuntarily affects the health of your child. It may happen that the mother, for example, when the babysitter in the kindergarten will say that the third child is ill. If only my child did not get sick, she would not get caught. This feminine conflict of terror will affect the baby. A change in the larynx, bronchi or rhinitis. Later, of course, a lay translation will follow as the child caught the disease, when it really is that the mother was scared. The child identified with her emotions and made a change. If in a kindergarten many people are scared in this way, everyone will think that there is an epidemic. Many mothers are frightened and will start to wonder, should I bring the child to kindergarten or not? And what will now be? So many children will have symptoms. Formerly it was perceived as an epidemic. However, we already know that by infecting ourselves we cannot evoke specific changes during contact with the virus. Let's say they exist though, and till today it has not been proven and only we think they are. This virus does not always produce a specific change in the epithelium of the nose or a change in the throat or larynx. For this you need to fall into a specific emotional conflict. Without conflict there is no disease change. We can also imagine that a child really likes a kindergarten teacher, and she sees that she is afraid of her. It is with whom the child is identified, not programmed genetically, and by that with whom he is emotionally bound, and who he understands well. And if it's your kindergarten teacher who is very afraid, her conflict can also take over the baby. Interesting that the child takes more conflicts from the person he spends more time with which he is more emotionally connected spiritually. Newborn baby or year-old child, because she is more often with his mother, and because it is better tuned to it spiritually. It's the emotional conflicts of the father through which he passes that do not affect her. So we cannot give an example. It is not possible for a child to be identified with a father, and is not excluded to take over his conflicts. However, the person with whom the child is more emotionally attached, to whom he is more attached, there is a man who spends more time with her, more of her. The baby is better identified with her. Thus, as the data show, the child does not take over his father's emotional conflicts. Regardless, a child may miss a father, so he can make a rash or eczema due to lack of a father who does not take care of it. This child is missing. That's how it works, but we cannot call it a spiritual umbilical cord. This is simply a conflict with the father, not the problem of him. Particular attention should be paid to mothers, because nature has assigned them a special task. In order to pay special attention to their mental balance, because in connection with them deliberately, not say that through them, because there is no one's fault here. Children are usually tuned to them, and are able to induce changes at home, because they identify with their mother. This can be documented by rash leukemia, spleen changes and liver tumors. Many such cases can be confirmed. Mother was afraid of lack of food and hunger, and the baby was suffering from enlargement and liver tumor. This is a field for further research. And while I do not personally have official results, many people often mention it. How can a mother minimize or exclude the consequences of her conflicts? This is a good question. First of all, the fact that it's not a big deal is not dramatic. She does not forget about herself and does not go crazy. He does not stop the situation, he does not give up, but calmly and with control will survive these conflicts. And first and foremost, if he sees that they have influence on a child, calms them down. It is true that we do not have money right now, but we will have it soon. This has already happened before. Not doing so a great deal. Problem appears when the mother herself is often unaware of her conflict. It just feels bad to go through the conflict. He wonders what is going on, but she is not in a position to realize what is going on. The best tool for this is new medicine, because we know what are the premises of biological conflict, and whoever knows them, before more serious changes occur, may realize it. Such a premise is, for example, a dramatic way of experiencing the subject of conflict. Dramatic means in this case serious. We collapse over it. He is mentally and spiritually tormented by us. We cannot have peace. The first symptom of this condition is compulsive thinking. That is, you cannot get rid of thinking or conflict or its subject matter. Our thoughts are filled with time. Problems or topics that we cannot get rid of are potential sources of conflict. The second premise is surprise. Only these emotional or spiritual conflicts cause changes in internal organs, whose appearance is a surprise to the mother. The third premise is that the conflict is a trifle. We feel that it is unbearable and unacceptable. So we are experiencing that we are constantly anxious. We still cannot recognize the problem solved, settled. The fourth premise is that we are experiencing conflict in loneliness. We do not talk about it, we choke on ourselves. The fifth is that we do not find the problem solved for a long time, as long as the solution does not appear. The first period of illness lasts. That is the active period of the conflict. However, after the conflict is resolved, the recovery period will begin to return to normal. Weak with most changes, we notice only the convalescence period, return to normal, because it is uncomfortable during it. This is because the symptoms cannot precede the resolution of the conflict. That is why Mother Nature thus arranged it. It is only during convalescence that these symptoms affect us, let's say physically. So if someone identifies the premises, it may be very probable to determine your symptoms and symptoms. And when he realizes it, he watches over his emotions, reasonably manage them. It does not dramatize, it does not break, it does not lose its head. There is not much doubt. And most importantly, when he sees that his emotional conflict has a significant impact on the child. For example, after a large family quarrel, trying to calm down his baby, telling him, you know, this happened and it happened, yes and no. We both did not think we were right about what we were saying. The child understands the situation, placates himself. Very important for the child's well is if we try to calm them down so that they do not feel dizzy, and that it will not cause serious changes. In conclusion, Mum should pay attention to her emotions on her emotional conflicts, because if she knows she is not in conflict, it is impossible to resolve or unrelated problems. There are no things or situations that would cause her to collapse. Is not in the emotional spill. It may be quiet that her child will not be guilty of any change. Of course, you still have to pay attention to the baby, to also not conflict itself. You need to know who your child is missing. I do not feel well. Do not stick to the rules rigidly that now you have to send the baby to kindergarten because everyone sends. Because every child misbehaves when it first comes to kindergarten. You may also notice that a child who is not properly prepared will immediately get a rash. This is because it feels separated from the mother. I do not want to make relationships with other people. As a consequence, the symptoms of rash appear as with varicella. The most common childhood illnesses and the most commonly occurring symptoms in children are caused by a conflict of separation. They are a conflict of separation and fence. Conflicts of sense of lack of closeness. The child thinks there is no mom, I miss her. I cannot hold her hand, I cannot hold her, hug her. I cannot sit on her lap. I just feel safe here. So it is a feeling of uncertainty, and a break from physical contact with mother is the most common cause of the appearance of rash. Regardless if your child is scared, there will be changes in larynx. Symptoms such as cough, coughing, Sometimes a child is afraid of his territory for his own property. He is often afraid that he will lose his mother because Mama also owns the property for the child, so he calls her his mother. She asks, "Where is my mother? I miss her." She suffers from pneumonia or bronchitis. Thus airway inflammation in a right-handed man or right-handed the boy causes conflicts of fear of loss of ownership, conflicts of separation. Children do not have bone changes, very high in a very low ratio. If they appear, they will rather be related to feelings for the mother. Because children do not care at first with their sense of worth, only after puberty it becomes important to them. Children are relatively rare in bone or boils. This is due to the fact that for a child important are relationship, proximity, touch of mother being with her, and the conflicts of my peace. Absence of the desired thing triggers inflammation of the tonsils. These are the conflicts that, as I mentioned recently, the child can survive alone. Regardless of mother, they are a feeling of lack of touch, to which the child suffers left alone in kindergarten, for half a day waiting for mom to hug them, because only then can he calm down. Until we see her, she misses her very much. Then after a half-day conflict, a half-day rash, erythema or smallpox will appear in the child.